In this video, I'm going to be modeling for you how we use the standard algorithm to add and subtract multi-digit numbers. So the standard algorithm is the strategy that most people originally is the only strategy people were taught on how to add and subtract. The reason that we wait until later in elementary school to primarily use the standard algorithm is because we want students to have a strong understanding of place value. So place value drawings, expanded form, the strategies that they learned in all the way from kindergarten through third grade, those strategies establish a stronger idea of number sense and an idea that ones can be grouped together to make a 10. Tens can be grouped together to make 100. So they really show the idea of our base 10 system. We don't want students to just be going through a process just because that's what they were taught to do in this column, that column. We want them to know what they're doing with the numbers. So when I go through these examples, I'm going to talk to you about what we're actually doing with these numbers. So as a few reminders before we get started is we want to make sure that students line up their place values when they're writing the equation. So this really isn't as efficient anymore now that we are working with many digits. So we want them to line up the place values. So that means ones are with ones, tens are with tens, hundreds are with hundreds. And again, that goes back to the idea that when we work with numbers, we know that ones can be grouped together to make a new 10. Tens can be grouped together to make a new 100. So we want them all to be lined up so that we're joining the correct digits. Also, we want to make sure that students are only ungrouping and regrouping when needed. So you might be thinking, well, what does ungroup and regroup mean? Ungrouping is when this is what people used to call borrowing, but that's really an outdated term. It really doesn't match a process of what's going on. You're not really borrowing anything. You are ungrouping 100 so that the tens place can have more tens. With regrouping, that's what people used to call carrying the one, but again, that's not really a mathematical term. What's happening is you're grouping those ones and you're using them for a different purpose now, maybe a 10, or regrouping those tens together to make them into 100. So we're going to get started. I'll be referring back to some of these ideas and also some of the mistakes that fourth graders might make. So here I have these two add-ins, and sometimes I like to just make up a little story to go along with it so that I can kind of visualize what's happening. So let's just say that I have candy. A lot of times fourth graders think that you have to have the larger number on top. For addition, that is not true. I could have this much candy and join these candies, or I could have this group of candy and join these. So addition, that's that commutative property that they've learned from probably first grade, where you can add in any direction and you're going to get the same sum. Now, if a lot of fourth graders are more comfortable with that bigger number on top, so that's fine if that's what they always want to do. It does not matter. So let me go ahead and write my number here. And then here comes one mistake fourth graders commonly make. They start the 74,000 right here because that's the start of how I say this number. So that's the start of here. But this is 10,000s, this is 100,000s. So I like to say kind of look for my period, comma, so that I know where to write my number. So here I am right there. Okay, so now I need to start in the ones place because ones can be regrouped to make tens. Tens can be regrouped to make hundreds. If I start in my hundreds place and then I go and then I realize, oh, my hundreds made new tens, I have to actually undo everything that I did. That's why we start in the ones place. So if I join 9 ones and 3 ones, that makes 12 ones. Well, one of the understandings we know is that only one digit can go in a place value. So, and this here shows me that a new 10 was made. So that 10 actually gets regrouped to make a new 10. So now I can add my tens up. 5, 6, 7 tens. All right, now you'll notice I did not regroup. So that's a common mistake is a lot of times fourth graders will regroup when they don't need to regroup. You're not always going to regroup. You only regroup when you make more than 9. When you have 10 or more, that's the regrouping. All right, so let me look in my hundreds place. 600s and 200s, that's 800s. Again, I don't need regrouping. My thousands place, 4,000 and 1,000, that's 5,000. Again, I didn't need regrouping. My 8 and my 7s, so that is 15. Okay, I can't put 15 in one spot. Oh, I made a new 100,000. So that's 100,000 and 50,000. right there. And so now let me do my 100,000s. 300,000 and 100,000 is 400,000. So when I joined these two numbers, my candies, if I want to make up a little story, I have 455,872. All right, so be careful where they line up their place values and that they're only regrouping when they need to. That's a common mistake. All right, let's look at my second example here with subtraction. So subtraction is a little different. Subtraction, you have to start with the larger number because you are taking a total and you are separating out a smaller amount. That's how subtraction always works. I'm taking my total number of objects and I'm separating out a smaller. That's why that beginning number is larger. So I'm going to write my 182,372. And I'm going to make sure I'm lining up those place values. So I'm going to write that period, comma, just so I don't forget them and put them in the wrong spot. Again, I want to start with my ones place because, again, I might need to use some tens as ones or use some thousands as hundreds. So let's get started. 2 minus 4. Well, if I have 2 candies, I cannot take 4 away. I need more ones. Where do I get more ones? From the tens. So I'm going to take a 10, now I only have 6 tens, and I'm going to ungroup it. And I'm going to give that 10 here. So now that number becomes a 12. You can also, if you would like, cross it out all the way and put 12. But one common mistake that fourth graders make sometimes is they cross out and write 10. They forget about that too. That's why I just like to put it right there to see my 12 now. So let me fix that here. So now I have 12 candies minus 4. So 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. 8 candies. All right, so now I have 6 minus 8. Well, I cannot take 6 candies or 60 candies and subtract 80. I need more tens. Where do I get more tens? By ungrouping 100. So I'm going to take 100 and I'm going to subtract 1. And I'm going to give that 100 here. And it's going to go from 6 to 16 tens. From 6 to 16 tens because there's 10 tens in 100, so it went from 6 to 16. Now you'll notice this 6 went from 6 to 16. It's changed twice. The 7 went to a 6. The 6 now went to 16. So you got to be careful with that. But I needed to ungroup. So now 16 minus 8, or 160 minus 80 is what it really represents is 80. Now, 200s minus 100, I do not need to ungroup here. So don't make that mistake by thinking I always need to ungroup. I only need to ungroup when I need to. So that's 100. There's my period, comma there. 2,000 minus 7,000. I cannot do that. So I need more thousands. Where do I get them from? The 10,000s. So I'm going to take one. I'm going to put it right there. So I see 12, but it's actually 12 thousands minus 7,000s is 5,000. And then my 7 10,000s or 70,000 minus 10,000 is 60,000. And then here I do not need to ungroup either. So 165,188 is after I separated this much candy from my beginning total. So there's my difference here. All right, so there's that standard algorithm. Watch out for these mistakes. This is not lined up. I need to make sure that I line up my digits. So that's one common mistake. Another one is regrouping and ungrouping when it isn't needed. The last mistake I want to talk to you about quickly is sometimes fourth graders will say 7 minus 8, I can't do that, so I'll just do 8 minus 7. But remember, we need to start with our total and subtract from it. So we always are reading kind of up to down. 7 minus 8. Some will switch the numbers around. Or sometimes if they're reading, they want to say, I'm taking 8 from 7. It's okay to say that, but you need to then realize that I can't take 8 tens from 7 tens. So I need more tens, getting them from the hundreds. All right, so there's your standard algorithm. I encourage you to watch out for those mistakes and really talk with your student about what's happening and try to use that more meaningful vocabulary of ungrouping and regrouping.